Welcome to our Colorado vacation of April through May of 2025. Um, Mike had made a promise to me 5 years ago when he asked me if I could go anywhere I wanted, and I said the Garden of the Gods in Colorado. And after about 5 years of testing different campers out and testing different distances and getting our land legs, I guess you could call it, we finally decided this was the year to go. And you'll see Mike over on the left checking the tire pressure before we left. That's a memory of my dad, who used to get out all of his equipment and test everything before we left for our vacations. In the middle, you'll see a decal that Mike had made up for our camper about good times had around campfires. And you'll see me over by our camper on the right hand side. Always like to take a picture like that. It kind of gives you an idea of how big the camper is, and just for documentation series. The background in this picture is actually the Grand Canyon, not the Garden of the Gods, but it makes a really good view. And this is how we're starting out our vacation slides. Here is a full view of our camper hooked up to Mike's truck. It's 37 feet long, and it's a Grand Design Solitude, uh, version 2017. And we actually went out and purchased it the day before Christmas. Who does something crazy like that? But I guess we do, and we just wanted to give you um, the whole picture of what it looks like on the outside. Here is a preview of the inside of our camper. I've labeled this one glamping. When we first became interested in traveling and camping, I said to Mike, we can skip the tanning series. My older brothers did that with scouting, and I says it isn't really all that terrific, so let's go to campers instead. And in the upper left picture is what you see when you turn to the left as you come through the camper doors. This is our living area. At the very front edge, you'll see the small little kitchen table, and then you'll see love seats that become recliners. Down at the very end is a pull-out couch bed, and around the bend you'll see there's a TV up at the top and a fireplace down below. We really didn't want an island, but that's what we ended up with in this particular camper. And behind the island is a gas stove and a really large refrigerator. And there's some cupboards that are out of sight in this picture. When the camp, the areas on the left, the table and the love seat, they slide into the middle up to the island. When the slides are in, the area for the stove and the refrigerator slide into the island on the other side when they are in. Our camper has 4 slides, 2 of them in this living area. If you go to the middle slide, that is a picture of our two love seats. There's a divider in the middle for a drink holder, but that does pull right out. So if you want to snuggle a little one night, that can work too. Over on the upper right, there's a better picture of the couch, and I really like the couch because it was tall enough that the round of the couch fits in that round spot in the back of your neck, and it is very restful that way. We haven't opened it up yet, but I believe it holds, it's at least a double bed when it is open. We hope to check that out this summer when one of our kids' families will be riding with us or going, meeting us for some camping time. The bottom left-hand corner is the room that actually sold me on this camper. We had kind of a price range in mind, and we kept looking, going past this one and said, nah, that's a little bit too much. And we skipped by it, and then we came back to it, and the guy says, there's a bedroom in the middle of the camper, and I looked at him like he was crazy, like, why would I want the bedroom in the middle of the camper? And he says, well, it's a spare bedroom, and you can use it for an office or whatever you like, and that just sold me right then and there. It comes with twin beds. These can easily slide out. I call it my office. You can't hardly see it. There's a little tiny corner of the desk area, and there's also a, a closet with drawers below it, out of sight. And also out of sight is above the the bunk beds is my green screen. So if I want to do my podcasting on the road, I can do it. And I have all my equipment in the cupboard ready to go. So whether we're bringing grandkids or we're going alone, and if we take time to park long enough, I could do a podcast or video editing or whatever the heart desires in that room. In the lower middle, you'll get a peek at our closet, which is a little different than many closets I've seen. It's got like little shelves, and you can put your clothes in there. I like to color organize them by rainbow colors, but there's enough for room for both of us. There's room in the middle. There's room at the bottom for shoes. It's just kind of a cool setup in the corner. You can't see it just out of the view. There's another closet that was designed for a washer and dryer, but we use our laundry basket. It's also got a hanging rod, so we hang up our clothes that we'd rather put on hangers rather than fold up. In the lower right, you get a picture of the king size bed. We've had a queen size our whole married life, but this one happens to have a king size bed. Mike said he couldn't find me the first night we slept in it. And I don't need as many blankets as he did, so sometimes I throw them off towards his way, and so there was a big bump of all these blankets in the middle, so kind of makes for interesting. And at the bottom of the bed, there's like a little pull out it bench like where you can open it up and you can put spare shoes in it, or you can sit on it to tie your shoes. There's also some storage room for some spare chairs from our dinette set or whatever you would want to put in there. So this is our idea of glamping. I labeled this side our most frequented We went to many, many love stops along our trip. Matter of fact, when we were planning our trip, we would look them up online. There's lots of documentation for where these sites are. They allow lots of room for tall vehicles to fuel up. They all have some sort of a fast food. Some of them have two fast food places. They have a lot of room behind them for truckers to take a rest. Even campers can pull up and take a rest if you can find a space on a given night. We traveled 5,981 miles on our trip. We made 38 gas stops to purchase a total of 855 gallons of gas. That averaged out about 7 gallons per mile. So that is where we spent a lot of time on our vacation. Our first official gas stop was Ripley, New York. I know it says Ohio, but it was Ripley, New York. And I took a picture of that sign because our son Kyle has a dog named Ripley, and we had babysit his dog when he was on vacation the week before we left. So we thought that was kind of appropriate. And there's Ripley's picture. Our first official campground was Maple Lakes Campground in Seville, Ohio. Turns out I have a friend who lives in Seville, Ohio. She used to live in Chittenango and now has moved to Ohio. And I had the privilege of going out to dinner with her in a place called the Tilted Farmer. Has some really interesting pizza there. And she showed me her house, which you can look across the long field and a bunch of trees, and through the trees you can get a peek of what the campground looks like. So she absolutely knew where that campground was because it was literally across the street from her. As we were traveling west, I kind of made this slide a pale color because that's what happened to the ground. It was a very little greenery, very little trees, and a lot of driving across it. We did see the St. Louis Arch, both going out and coming back. And this will give you a little idea. It's really difficult to get a picture of the arch because it's not like you can park and get a picture. You have to kind of get it as you're going across bridges. Westward bound. These pictures were taken from inside the truck as we traveled west, and you can see the land is very flat. And you can see for many, many miles. Some of them were very, very pretty views and very long views. And Mike says it wasn't as flat as it looked because you were kind of always going a little bit uphill as you traveled. But it was interesting to watch as the scenery changed as we went along. But here's one of those places where almost nothing was growing, a little tumbleweed, and very few cattle out in the fields. Well, when we hit Colorado Springs, we were planning to stay for 3 days, so we decided to take time to go out to a nice restaurant our first night. And we found one of our local favorites, which was Texas Roadhouse. Come to find out, on Monday night, all of the help at the Texas Roadhouse dressed up like cartoon characters, including the Batman and the Ghostbuster who brought their vehicles and parked outside of the building. So, since my third son Kyle loves Batman, I had a picture of me with Batman, and our kids had Ghostbuster things, toys when they were little. So I took pictures of them, and I love onomatopoeias. So I added some pow and some zap and some na 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 Batman to the picture just for the fun of it. Here we are. We made it to the Garden of the Gods, and as you can see from the background, I started to add the red color to it because you begin to see the red rocks at the Garden of the Gods. This is a place where I had been many, many years ago with my parents, and I just loved it. I have a picture where the rocks are so red and the sky is so blue, and it just sucked in really deep in me, and that's why I wanted to go back. The people inside of the tourist building took our picture in front of the graphic of the Garden of the Gods, and we're wearing our Wilma and Fred shirts. And Mike was a good sport on that one. I love the picture over on the right. He choreographed that picture where my arms are spread out wide and the tall red bumps in the background are the Garden of the Gods. And you'll see at the bottom the pathway to where you take your trip through the various land figures, and there's also a little map that shows you some of the different sites that you'll be seeing. Here are some of the sights of the Garden of the Gods up close and personal. You see the large picture on the left, upper left. That's as you're taking the trailway closer to where the exhibits are, and you get a vision of that first site. And the next two are as you come into the parking lot where you can get out and take pictures. They gave you many spaces where you could go up closer and look at the different sites. The rock is very porous. The animals, the birds, they're able to nest in some of it because it flakes apart really easily. And in that parking lot, there were places for tour buses, and people would come in groups or school groups would come to see it. My dad had a camper that was a former school bus, and I could sense that he had been there with his camper many years ago. Brought a special smile to my face. And down at the bottom, you see some of the different shapes of the rocks. Especially the one on the right is kind of famous. That one's called the Kissing Camels. And it was towards the end of the day when we came to that one, and Mike was willing to get up in the back of his truck, up on top of his toolbox, and get that picture for me. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for going to this place. I'd wanted to revisit it many, many years, and you made it happen. Thank you. Here are some peculiar shaped rocks that are at the Garden of the Gods. The one at the left is called the Steamship Rock. It looks like the bow of a boat going through the water. It's pretty large, and the road goes right in front of it. The next one is a balancing rock. You can see it's balanced on a very small portion of the upper rock, and another couple was nice enough to take our picture. Um, and to the side of balancing rock. There were some different signs and things, and standing there, I'm not sure if I found the exact spot where I had taken the picture with my parents years ago, but as I was at that spot, I just sensed that maybe this is where we had taken that picture. And it was special to me to have my take my picture there. As he did a journal in Facebook as we traveled our through the many miles, and he says you wouldn't believe the different emotions that I felt when I was there. So I guess the desire to go there was truly deep and was very real for me, and it was I am really grateful that I got to go. I named this slide Spires, Fours, and Flats. If you look at the left, you'll see some pointy rock formations. They had some that were labeled the cathedral. I'm not sure if that was it, but it may well have been. But some of the rocks were more pointy. And as you look in the middle, that's an up close picture of the rock, how there's some like pores or pits in the mountain that the birds could easily uh, pack into it or pack a large space out and form a home. Sure, other insects could gather there as well. Just the nature, it was sandstone, I believe, and I remember the guides many years ago telling us that as we traveled through. And over to the right, sometimes you just found big flat rocks. They were good to sit on or easier to climb if you did, but just to show you the variations of some were more of a specific shape, some were more pointy, some were more flat, but there was quite a combination of rocks, and we traveled through them and took all the time that we wanted. Also near Colorado Springs was Pikes Peak, and the first picture is actually looking out the window of our camper at the campground. And if you look at those clouds up at the top, you will see they're hiding a part of a mountain that's actually Pikes Peak. And we could see it from our camper or our parking lot there. And we could see when it was covered with the morning clouds, the morning fog, and you could see when it cleared up, so it gave you a better idea which might be the good time to travel up it. Down at the bottom, you'll see me. I actually have a snowball in my hand. The snow was what I would call, as from coming from a central New Yorker, kind of a dry snow. It wasn't, didn't, I could easily pick it up with my bare hands, didn't have any gloves on. I'm just wearing a sweatshirt, so it wasn't especially cold, but um, we wanted to get a picture, and yes, I did throw the snowball at him. No, I didn't hit him, but that was a picture. They had a big pull off there so you could get pictures of things. In the middle, the sign is a little bit bent, but they have a beware of Sasquatch crossings. Now, I don't know if that was for fun or if they really had some, but I thought it was a pretty good picture to take. How often do you see those signs? And over on the right, you see the two of us together, and you can see the mountains behind us. And anyone would you just ask them to take your picture? They were more than glad, especially if you would take theirs in return. Here is a view from where we were doing the snowball throwing, and you can see the road. Uh, and we were able to travel up to where they check your tires. There's a place where they check your tires to make sure you're not riding your brakes too hard coming down the hill. And uh, I was able to get a panoramic view of the top of the mountains, but it was a little hard to make that fit in the slideshow because the opening frame of it was not um, did not show the view as clearly as this one. This is a place called Royal Gorge. Again, it was just minutes from where we stayed in Colorado Spring. Um, it's a little hard to tell, but I'm standing and the gorge is behind me, and on the right, Mike is standing and the gorge is behind him. With the colors of the rock, it's a little hard to tell, but there was a river down in the base of it, and the rocks here a little more yellowy tint than the red, but it give you a little idea. Uh, that we had hoped to ride the Royal Gorge train, but we happened to hit the day when they went from their winter schedule to their spring schedule. In the winter, they only take one train a day. This in their spring schedule, they take two. And so the next day, we were easily able to take the ride. Here is the Royal Gorge train that we took. You can see the river that the train goes right alongside. Mike got us railroad cars that have a glass that goes not only so you're looking out it, but it curves around to the top of the train so you can see the height of the mountains. And there's a picture with us uh, showing the train in the background. In the lower right were some yurts that people would pay $250 a night to stay in, and they didn't even have their own bathroom. They had to use common bathroom facilities. Mike thought that was a little silly, but hey, everybody teach their own, I guess. So we had a good time taking that ride. This picture here is taken alongside of the water. The train is going one way and the water is going another way. And I thought it was kind of a cool optical illusion. But that's how close to the water that we were. We were in Colorado Springs for 3 days, so we made many trips through the town. And one of the trips through the town, I saw these transformers next to this garage building, and I asked Mike if he would stop so we could get pictures for our grandsons. And even our sons enjoyed them when they were little. Over at the left, of course, the yellow one is a famous bumblebee. That's usually one of people's favorites. I'm standing next to probably Optimus Prime, really tall. I barely come up to his kneecap. I couldn't tell you the names of the other two, but it was just kind of fun. I don't know if the man purchased them or made them himself, but they were cool, and it has to do with cartoons. I want to stop. Again, as we travel through Colorado Springs, I wanted to say a special thank you to Mike for bringing me there to see the Garden of the Gods and all of the other adventures. So I kept looking as we traveled. the road at the different restaurants, and this place was named Rudy's, which is um, a name. We have a place in central New York called Rudy's that specializes in seafood. Well, this Rudy's specialize in brisket and ribs, and I figured that would treat both Mike and myself. And we found it was kind of an interesting layout of a place, kind of low key and low service, but the food was great. All of their workers were behind the counter cutting up the meat. And at the bottom left, you'll see they've got a really long chest full of ice and soda. All the soda bottles had the screw top that you could twist right off. They also had beer there. They had a cooler that where you could get potato salad or coleslaw or whatever you like. They also had hot sides like new potatoes with butter and that type of thing. And I took a picture of a root beer bottle. My younger brother, we used to tease when my family traveled. We liked to stop at a place called A&W. It was one of these places where they came out to your car to serve you, and they had really heavy mugs and they were frosted. And my family thought maybe they'd keep one as a souvenir. So when the lady come back to get our empty mugs, she noticed there was one short. And we all turned around to my littlest brother and said, Tom. Of course, Tom didn't take it, but we did give it back. So he likes root beer and we like the memory. In the middle, you'll see the glob of brisket that I got, and they also served a wetter kind. Mine was barbecued, and the wetter kind was not. And Mike got the wetter kind, and if you, we actually ended up going to two Rudy's stations barbecue places along the way home, and the second one they cut it more like they do in many restaurants, and you see both mine and Mike's. And they would give you a huge tub, kind of like the tub where you carry your like a whole bunch of glasses, like if you were washing the glasses in a restaurant and you were carrying them out to put it in a space for serving, and they'd give you one of those to put your food in. And they also had a huge roll of wax, one-sided wax paper that you could cut off a huge hunk, and that was your placemat. And they just had plain old red and white tablecloths. And when you were done eating, you did your own bussing by taking this huge bin over to where the throwaway place was, and they would take it from there. Um, Up in the middle top, it says they offer group meals. It would say how much it would cost for 10, 20, 30 people. And you'd get three sides and three meats. And it had it all figured out. You could either, this catering, I suppose you could eat at the Rudy's or you could take it home to wherever you wanted your party to land. But it was unique and they did a good job and the food was good. So, you know, yeah, we'd go again. We already went twice. Why not? Hey, this is a kind of a mini Grand Canyon. It's a Native American spot just before the Grand Canyon. If you look in the upper left part picture, there's a picture of our camper way down on the parking lot. There was only one other car in the parking lot, but they made sure that we parked where the campers went. I guess you just have to follow their rules. And if you'll notice in the different pictures, you'll see different crevices and different shapes to the rock. It was kind of condensed, but because it was condensed, you could look down in it and get a little idea of what the Grand Canyon might look like. If you'll notice, these rocks are a little more yellow, less red, but um, it was a good way to to stick your toe in and get a feel for what the Grand Canyon might be coming. You'll notice there's a big sign for watching out for reptiles. This is in Arizona. I have a cousin, not a cousin, a nephew who lives in Arizona, who is a doctor of pharmacology, and he specializes in toxins and especially poisonous bites, and has some papers out on it. And that's his specialty. So they do, when they put up a sign, you need to pay attention. And even if there isn't a sign, please pay attention because there are all kinds of things out in that area. Well, the first day we went to the Grand Canyon, it was too foggy to see much of anything, and we needed some LP gas. So, where did they send us? They sent us to Bedrock. Now, they didn't know that I loved the Flintstones, but that's where they sent us. They sent us to this place. Look for the big Fred Flintstone, and you'll know you're in the right place. And you look at the building, and it's textured with that gravelly kind of a feeling. My kitchen is an early modern Flintstone, and I used a textured paint to create that style, and you'll see some Flintstone mobiles down at the bottom, including one with just towing a camper, Flintstone style. And I put a picture of us with our Fred and Wilma shirts just to round this out. But I got a lot of cool uh, souvenirs inside of this store, and it made me smile. Yes, we finally did make it to the Grand Canyon on a day when it was nice and clear. You can see me with the background on the left, and you can see Mike on the right looking at the vastness of the Grand Canyon. I had been there years ago with my parents, but I knew that only looking at it in person can help you to understand just how big it really is. And I was glad that I was able to show that to Mike. And if you look at the picture down in the middle, um, that is not a green screen. That is a very real shot. A couple was able to take it, and you can really see the Grand Canyon behind us. And it is definitely multicolored, lots of different layers, lots of different oranges and yellows and shades of brown. And I'm so glad that we were able to see it. We were started at the south rim, and we were able to take the road around the canyon, and here are many different views, and you can see how up at the top of the canyon there are some greenery, some short trees, and you can also see the multicolors in the distance and just how vast this uh, natural wonder is. There is a shot that shows you, I don't know if the movie's showing in the slideshow, but it's a panoramic view, shows you many, many different angles, many different shots. Shows you how wide and how gorgeous this place is. As we were traveling around the outer side of the Grand Canyon, we noticed a few cars ahead of us were stopped. And upon looking, if you look at the upper left-hand side, you will see a female elk emerging from the greenery. The cars all stop. The elk is not spooked. She just gently walks across the road and goes to the other side. Looking in the lower picture, a few minutes later, the male elk pops out, poses for his grand appearance, and walks across the road, and the two of them walk along the other side of the road. It was very obvious that they were not afraid of the cars, that they had done this many times before. We traveled on down the road and then turned around and came back, and they were still going for their evening stroll. What an adventure. I had heard a lot of nice things about Sedona before we started our trip, and I know a lot of women's events have been held in that area. So when the Grand Canyon and Sedona were only 2 hours apart, we left our camper in the Grand Canyon in the park. There's a national park there, state park, and just went with the truck down to Sedona for a little short visit. I believe that mountain is called Bell behind us there. Sedona is known for a lot of energy vortexes, and Bell is one of the most famous ones. At their Welcome Center, there's a little blurb in there in the middle, and at the Welcome Center was also Smokey the Bear to remind us to use wise choices. The Sedona area did have the Red Rock, but it had lots of rocks and in lots of places, actually more places than even the Garden of the Gods. We ate breakfast in a diner, and there really was quite a panoramic view around there. It's kind of an upscale town. My brother said it's like Skinny Atlas on steroids. This is a picture outside of the diner that we ate, and I took a little panoramic slideshow of it to show you just how much of this colorful rock is around Sedona. We had a really good breakfast, a really expensive breakfast, but with homeschool squeezed orange juice and applewood bacon and some really tasty home fries. It was a nice breakfast with a wonderful view. Here's a picture of us at the Continental Divide. We actually crossed it twice along our journey, and I had a picture of my dad at the Continental Divide further up north when he took his trip. And so when I saw the words for Continental Divide, I asked Mike if he had time to put on the brakes and take us down to get our picture taken, and he was able to do it this round. If you aren't familiar with the Continental Divide means, it's a place where when water falls on the left side of the Continental Divide, the water goes out to the Pacific Ocean eventually. If it falls on the right side of the Continental Divide, it eventually the water goes to the Atlantic Ocean. It's kind of where things split, which way the water flows. This is one of the campgrounds we stayed at, and we took this picture because they had these metal, colorful characters right out in front of their welcome station, and they were designed like a mariachi band, and they did a really nice job on them, and it was really attractive. We took a picture of us in front of it, but we kind of got lost in all of the beautiful colors of the band. So I put this one up here with just the band to show you how neat and creative some people can be. At one of the gas stations we stopped at, there was a Denny's restaurant was the fast food place connected with the gas station. And when we sat down, Mike says, "Go stand over by that sign. I need your picture there." Okay. And you can't see it, but in the picture area, there's some words that say Winslow, Arizona. And I guess he said that long ago there was a song that talked about standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. So, thanks to this picture on the wall, and there was the a corner to where the different dividing stations for the different eating places was. So I was literally on a corner, and this area, you'll see lots of Route 66 signs, although that's not the official name of the routes anymore. That was the name that it went by many years ago, and I've had some friends who took a trip along Route 66. It was a thing from the 60s and the 70s or somewhere in that area. So I just thought that was appropriate to put them with this sign. Well, we turned a corner and we started to head way back, and we picked a place midway on the way back, Branson, Missouri. We've heard a lot of things about it over the years and thought it was a great place to have a little break on our way back home. You see the water tower, you will see the Gowden Country Theater, you'll see Dolly Parton's Stampede, and you'll see the Dublin Tenors and Celtic Ladies. You'll also see uh, King Kong climbing up the building. I call him Godzilla, but you know, yeah, I'm in the right ballpark. But those were the different, there were, our campground gave us an itinerary for every act that was going on in town, the times, all of them, so you could pick whatever you want. We could have gone to two or three in a day easily by time wise, but we decided one day was enough for us to handle. We stayed 3 nights in Branson, and the first night we went to an Elvis show. It was put on by Jerry Presley, supposedly a second cousin of Elvis, and he's even wearing the white and gold jumpsuit as he's singing. And they even passed out scarves to the women, and afterwards Jerry came out and signed the scarves and posed with pictures so we could get pictures. And they had some really good, deep male voices and a couple of women that were being backup singers, and they really enjoyed the music. And, I'm sure there's plenty of Elvis impersonators out there. It was just a nice, enjoyable night. He was actually doing his Aloha music that night, did a little bit from Blue Hawaii. That was the first movie I ever saw, and I even used to play the Hawaiian wedding song on the piano many, many years ago. So it was a fun night. Well, in Branson, Missouri, you'll find this monster climbing the tower over the Hollywood word. Well, I got my monsters a little mixed up. I guess the monster climbing the building was King Kong, but I confused it with Godzilla. And a little story about Godzilla. When my grand when my daughter-in-law was expecting my oldest grandson Grayson, they used to call the baby Grayzilla. Once they found out it was a boy, and his dad Kyle picked out this little stuffed Godzilla toy to give Grayson in the hospital after he was born. So I that's why I took the picture for Grayson, and I got to talk to them on the phone, and I told them about it, and his little brother Arlo says, "Can it be for me too, Grandma? Can it be for me?" And I said, "Sure, Arlo, it's for you too." So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The next night in Branson, we went to Dolly Parton's Stampede. Now, a little backstory. When we had traveled to Myrtle Beach, my cousin Tom and his wife Missy took us to Dolly Parton's The Pirates. They told us about him. And that was a wonderful show with a wonderful meal, and they had a great way of passing out food, and it was a really fun time. So we thought, why not catch the Stampede, which is held in Branson? And as you come to get your pick up your tickets, you go past these horse stalls with the most magnificent animals. Now I'm not really a horse person, but you could see how magnificent these animals were and how well they were cared for. And as Dolly always does, she offers you a picture with many different backgrounds, and you see the master of ceremonies in the middle on his horse. Dolly even fixes it up so that you're entertained while you're waiting for the show to begin. They had singers and a space to hold you until it was time to go in to see the show. Here are some pictures from the show. You can see the really big horses carrying the wagons, and there's one picture from in the stable. On the right, they had a gal that an acrobat who'd come down from the ceiling and came on to this horse, the one with the blue scarf, and she did all kinds of tricks and just lots of activities. They had the calf roping, and you can see down there on the bottom and in the middle. Oh my goodness, the food they gave you. They gave you a cup of soup, and then they gave you the most wonderful homemade biscuit. Then they gave you a whole Cornish hen, and just in case you didn't like Cornish hen, they also gave you pulled pork, and you got potato, and I'm not sure what that other item is there on the plate. But then after that, you had the choice of either chocolate and coconut cake, or you could have an apple turnover. And the food was absolutely wonderful. They gave you a doggy bag if you didn't finish all of your meat, and and what's really nice is you're in long rows, and there's a long bench and then there's a long table, and they bend your ticket just right so that they know what drink you want. So you could have a soda or lemonade or whatever you wanted, and they kept that filled up all the time. And they would go through with a huge tray of like the Cornish hens, and they just set them down on your plate as they walked along, or they'd scoop up the mashed potatoes and put them on your plate. And they could do it so quickly that it didn't interrupt the show, and the food was great. And I when I saw the pirates in Myrtle Beach, I was just fascinated by how somebody had really worked the kinks out of that system so that they could get get all the food out, do it without interrupting your show, and just take care of it and pick it up without interrupting the the show, without taking up your time, and yet you got a wonderful meal. And Dolly made sure everyone was well fed in style with the show that was going on. And down at the end, you'll see a Canastota wagon with some more people in it. It was, and the riders who did the stunts that not in the wagons, but just that were individual riders were certainly top class showmen. That was another thing about when we went to Myrtle Beach, is that was a pirate show and they were Olympic class swimmers. So Dolly doesn't do anything halfway. She puts on a good show, she gives you a good show, and you come away with good memories. One afternoon in Branson, we were chilling in between activities, and Mike turned on the TV. Now, sometimes you have limited channels you can watch in these places, even though the camper had capabilities. Sometimes you deal with some old shows that are on, and as we're chilling, Mike put on the cartoons for me because he knows I love cartoons, and the cartoon had just had Goofy on it, so he asked me to come over, and I'm wearing my Goofy shirt. So, um, little little tongue in cheek, the got a little goofy in the afternoon. The last night in Branson, we saw the Dublin Irish tenors and the Celtic ladies, and there was also another dancing group that worked with these people as well. And this was held in that castle building, so that's kind of gives a little taste flair to it, Irish flair to it. And both the women's group and the men's group, sometimes they sang separate, sometimes they sang together, and they did a really nice job. And they were dressed nicely, and we found out that they had a really great souvenir shop. Found a gift for my aunt in there that I hadn't seen anywhere else, and we just enjoyed watching them. We've enjoyed the Celtic women many times on TV, and with a name like McCarthy, we thought that was a good place to spend our last night in Branson. The title of this slide is Anybody Can Change a Flat Tire on the Road. Well, this time we had the springs on the camper popped a bolt, cured a bolt on both sides on the camper. And Mike, we were just before a gas station pull off. We hadn't planned to stop there, but because we were there, as Mike could see the tires smoking, he decided we better pull in. We went way in the back. As you can see there on the left-hand picture, you can see the the jacks, built-in jacks in the camper, and uh, we had to use them to support the camper. And Mike had two more jacks with him to help support them. The whole spring system had cocked to the left, and one side poked out and one side poked in, and it made it really hard not only to get a bolt back in, but to get the springs back in the right place. And you'll see a big orange ratchet strap there in the middle because that's what Mike used to jerry rig this thing back in place. Took us 3 hours on the hot pavement there to get things back in line. There was a garage for the truckers in this stop, and they were willing to repair us, but we decided we wanted to see what was going on first, and Mike decided to fix it. We did go up to the shop to buy the right bolts, cost about $20, and then found out they were the wrong size bolts, so we had to pay another $20. But for $40 and 3 hours in the hot sun, Mike was able to fix this. And uh, we say over the flat tires because each of our last trips we had at least one flat tire, and we even have a special friend named Wendy who is our official prayer tire lady warrior. And we were real grateful that we didn't have any flat tires, but this certainly added to our repertoire of things to repair on the road. And I say Mike fixed it with a bobby pin and a toothpick, but I guess he had a little more than that with him. And we were glad that he able to put it back together, and no one was hurt, and we kept going. Thanks, Mike. Mike bought us one of these maps so we can put a sticker on for each state we've been in. And you can see our path from the right to the left where we were going out. And then when we came back, we came to southern states and then crossed at Branson and did a diagonal back to the house. We made 12 states, almost 6,000 miles, and we did it all in 23 days. We're already planning for next year, and we hope to go the northern route. When we got back home, well, we have this sign on front of our house says the McCarthys. It actually was my mother-in-law's. She bought it at the state fair one year. You can get them carved with whatever name you wanted. And after she passed, and Mike's the only boy in the family, uh, we ended up with the McCarthy sign. And when we came back, there was this nest built on it, and down on the porch were these pieces of robin eggshells. So I guess the robin looked out for the house while we were gone. They were the house sitters. And Mike looked at the nest in this picture and he thought, yeah, we are empty nesters now. So we hope you've enjoyed our trip and we look forward to taking more adventures in the future. Bye bye for now.